Hello everyone, this is part 2 video on NCERT as it is review for environmental chemistry chapter. So in this we are going to start with the particulate pollutants. Already in the first part we have seen the gaseous pollutants in troposphere. So we will start with the particulate pollutants. So what are these particulate pollutants? Either these are minute solid particles or liquid droplets that are there. So how do these particulate pollutants come into the atmosphere? Because of the vehicle emissions, smoke particles from the fires, dust particles, ash coming from the industries, all of them will be accounting for the particulate pollutants. Now we can look at the particulate pollutants two types. One is if they are made up of micro living organisms like bacteria, fungi, molds, algae, such type of particulate pollutants, right? We call them as viable. The viable are basically the micro living organisms which are dispersed in the atmosphere. They can cause allergic effects to us, even they can even cause plant diseases. The other one is the non-viable part. So non-viable part is basically the non-living in that sense. We can classify them further based on the nature of the particles and the size. You will see one by one. So first we will start with the smoke. Smoke, as we generally understand it, will consist of what? Solid particles or a mixture of solid and liquid droplets. Smoke usually comes by the combustion of fuels, whether we are doing the burning of the fossil fuels or burning of the garbage, dry leaves, even the cigarette smoke. All these are examples of the emissions which will contribute for the smoke particles in the particulate pollutants. The other ones are dust, mist and fumes. We will just go one by one. Dust we will refer to as the fine solid particles, typically the size of over 1 micrometer in terms of diameter. So wherever we get these numbers, right, I told you in the first video itself we have to be careful about the numbers. So how do we get the dust particles? Grinding, sandblasting, and then we have woodworks. When you are doing the woodworks, right, the sawdust will be coming out of the woodworks, pulverized coal, fly ash that will come from the factory. So all these will be adding up to the dust. Mist, as you can see here, right, this is what you will refer as mist. What is it? When you have any of the liquid spray like herbicides or insecticides. What is a herbicide? That can prevent the weeds. So herbicides are basically what? For the control of the weeds, right? So when you spray them, if they miss the target, the spray particles, right, the liquid spray, they will be entering into the atmosphere. Or even when we are condensing the vapors, like sulfuric acid, when it is condensed, right, these are small droplets will be there in the atmosphere. We call it as what? Mist. So we can have the herbicides, insecticides, even sulfuric acid mist. All these are the examples that can form the mist. And also we have further we don't have that as a part of our study here. We have anti-mist spray also is there. Okay, like to reduce the mist rate, we can use some particular sprays. The other one is the fumes. So fumes are generally obtained when you are talking about condensation of a vapor during the sublimation or the distillation part, or even boiling, and even some chemical reactions also, right, we can see the fumes coming out. So fumes generally will be from the organic solvents. There can even be some metal oxide fumes also. The other one that we will discuss about is the smog. So we'll talk about it later, but let us look at what is the effect of these particulate pollutants. Particulate pollutants effect will largely depend upon the size of the particles. If you look at particles which are like bigger than 5 micron, micron means micrometer, they will get lodged in our nasal passage. If you have particles which are even bigger like 10 micron, they can get into the lungs also. So one of the major chemical substance, right, that is seen as very, very harmful for the in the particulate pollutant category is the lead. So previously in countries like India, we used to have a tetraethyl lead. Basically we call it as a leaded petrol, that is added to the petrol so that the tetrahedral lead will act as an anti-knocking agent. And this will be, so because of the vehicular emission, right, the lead particles will be emitted, and this is seen as a major particulate pollutant, because the lead, right, will be very harmful, lethal in the sense, so it can interfere with our development of the red blood cells as well as the maturation of the red blood cells. Biology will study about what is the importance of red blood cells in terms of our overall functioning, etc. But nowadays this problem is not there, because the use of leaded petrol is completely stopped now. Talking about the smog, right, I mean, you can see that literally the word basically comes from smoke plus fog. That's how the smog word has come. You can see here in this visualization, right, it's a smog. Now a lot of cities across the world, particularly in India, if you talk about, right, Delhi is seen as a very, very major example for this effects of smog, particularly in winter. So we'll see that the smog that will happen in winter, right, we call it as a classical smog. Okay, so look at it, the classical smog, right, can be divided into two types. One is the classical smog, which happens in places like Delhi, that is basically the smog that will happen in cool, humid climate. It is basically a mixture of smoke, fog and sulfur dioxide. Sometimes you see the haze, right, that is because of sulfur dioxide. So these are possible questions. What is the composition of the classical smog? You have your sulfur dioxide, which can get further oxidized. Means what? This can act as a reducing agent. This composition can act as what? Reducing agent. Because any substance which can undergo oxidation, right, that can act as a reducing agent. That is the reason why chemically, right, we'll see what it is reducing in terms of nature. That is why the classical smog can be also called as what? Reducing smog. Why? Because the composition that is there inside, it can act as a reducing agent. It comes in cool and humid climate, typically winters, and best example you can think of is Delhi. In Delhi and all, I mean, of late you have seen, like recent years, even up to mid of the day, right, the visibility will be very less. Like you can't take your vehicle and just come out. Even the flight services will get affected because of the visibility issues. The other type of smog is the photochemical smog. That happens in warm, dry and sunny climate. There is a difference. Classical smog, cool, humid conditions. Photochemical smog, warm, dry climate, sunny climate. Obviously from the word itself, right, we will see that there will be a role that the sunlight will play in the photochemical smog. We will talk about it. The main reason for the photochemical smog is the action of sunlight on unsaturated hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides produced by the automobiles and the factories. So majorly we look at the automobiles case. So automobiles, they have the combustion of fossil fuels. Some of the unburnt hydrocarbons can be emitted. Same way the nitrogen oxides also. So the interaction between the sunlight and these substances, right, that is what will be leading to the photochemical smog. We will discuss about it. And if you will see, after some time when we thoroughly discuss about the composition of the photochemical smog, we will see that the photochemical smog will be having oxidizing agents. Classical smog has got reducing agent, right? That's why we call it as what? Reducing smog. Photochemical smog has got oxidizing agents, so we will call it as what? Oxidizing smog. Now how the photochemical smog gets formed? If you look at the vehicular emissions, right, there are a lot of types of substances that can be emitted, including carbon dioxide, etc. But the two emissions that we will focus on here is the unburnt hydrocarbon particles and nitric oxide. NO and then unburnt hydrocarbon particles, because hydrocarbons are what? These are basically the unburnt fuel particles only, whether it is a methane or any of these unburnt fuel particles. Now when these pollutants build to sufficiently high levels, what happens is we will see a chain reaction that will happen, and the chain reaction will be basically the interaction between the sunlight and the pollutants. First let us start with what happens when the nitric oxide is acted upon by the sunlight. So it will be getting converted into nitrogen dioxide. and we'll see that the photochemical smog at the end of the day is what? The oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds that are emitted by the vehicular emission, right? They will be acted upon by the sunlight, and the interaction is what will be giving rise to photochemical smog. So once this nitrogen dioxide is formed, right, this can absorb the sunlight again, and it will be broken down into what? Nitric oxide, and this is what the free oxygen atoms. So understand this, the nitrogen dioxide that is formed, that can be divided or broken again by the action of energy from the sunlight. This free oxygen, right, will be very reactive, of course. It will combine with the molecular oxygen to form ozone. So this is what, this step is the formation of ozone. Now this ozone formed can react with the nitric oxide. In reaction 2 we have the ozone formed. In reaction 1 we have nitric oxide, right? So these two will combine. You can see nitric oxide will combine with ozone to give us what? NO2. And this will lead to what? A buildup of nitrogen dioxide in the atmosphere. So NO2, it's a brown gas. So if it is in sufficiently high levels, right, you can see that there will be a haze. So this NO2 will again be dissociated because of the sunlight action. We will get nitric oxide. It's a chain reaction. And here what we will see is that ozone, which is produced, itself is a toxic gas. And both NO2 and ozone, right, they are oxidizing in terms of nature. Because NO2, you can see it is giving rise to what? Free oxygen. Ozone also is what? Oxidizing. Since these are strong oxidizing agents, that is why we call them as what? Oxidizing smog. The classical smog is what? Reducing. This is oxidizing, right? Why it is oxidizing? Because in this we have strong oxidizing agents. And even what will happen is these oxidizing agents, right, they can combine with unburned hydrocarbons. Like I said, right, all these volatile, methane, etc. And they will be giving rise to compounds like formaldehyde, acrolein, peroxyacetyl nitrate, which we can call in short as PAN, PAN. So you can see what happens. The volatile hydrocarbons, they can react with the ozone. They can give us what? Formaldehyde. We can also get acrolein. So sometimes they can ask us what is the formula of acrolein or what is the structure of acrolein. So these kind of things we have to keep in mind. Then we have peroxyacetyl nitrate. So this one also. So when I say that we will get questions straight out of the NCERT textbook, like this kind of questions can be asked. They will say, what is the chemical structure of peroxyacetyl nitrate? They will give you 4 options. So you have to choose which of them is actually giving this one. Now the effect of the photochemical smog, right? What are the components of this? This is another possible question. We'll have ozone, we'll have nitric oxide, we have acrolein, we'll have formaldehyde, we have peroxyacetyl nitrate. The photochemical smog, right, it can have serious health issues. Both ozone and peroxyacetyl nitrate, right, they can be very harmful in terms of eye irritant. And ozone and nitric oxide, they can irritate the nose, throat, and even high concentration can lead to headache, chest pain, cough. So all these are the attributes of what are the health hazards that these photochemical smog can cause. And this is a slightly important one. The photochemical smog, right, can lead to the cracking of rubber. So rubber can be cracked by the photochemical smog, and it will lead to the corrosion of metals, even the painted surfaces. Why? Because photochemical smog is at the end of the day oxidizing in nature, right? So it can cause corrosion of the metals and even the painted surfaces, building materials, all these things. So this is about the smog. So how do we control the smog, particularly the photochemical smog, or how do we get rid of it? See, here we have 2 things. One is the primary precursors. What are the primary precursors? We are starting from where? The oxides of nitrogen and hydrocarbons. After that we are getting the secondary precursors, whether it is ozone or peroxyacetyl nitrate or acrolein, all these are what? Secondary precursors. We have primary precursor and we have secondary precursors. If we can stop the primary precursors, right, that is coming from the vehicular emission, then automatically the secondary precursors also will be reduced. So for that we use something called as a catalytic converter. So this diagram is not there in NCERT. I have kept it so that we will be able to understand this clearly. So we have a catalytic converter which will be able to convert the hydrocarbons and the oxides of nitrogen before the emissions are let into atmosphere. What happens? Let us see. So this is where the exhaust from the engine is coming. It will come into the catalytic converter. You have the honeycomb like, internal structure. You will have a reduction catalyst that can reduce oxides of nitrogen. So the reduction catalyst, right, it will reduce oxides of nitrogen to N2. Then we will also have an oxidation catalyst. What it does is it will oxidize hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide, and that will be let out. So in the final emission that is coming out from the catalytic converter, right, we are not going to have oxides of nitrogen, at least reduced amounts, and also we will have the hydrocarbons converted into the carbon dioxide and then emitted. Even we can have, this is another possible important question, the plants like Pinus or Juniperus, Pyrus, all these plants, right, they can metabolize nitrogen oxide, and thereby if you have these plants, right, they can also help in reducing the oxides of nitrogen, because oxides of nitrogen and the unburnt hydrocarbons are what? The primary precursors. From there only the secondary precursor will be produced. Okay, so this is about the method of using catalytic, mostly we are focusing on what, using the catalytic converter for reducing the primary precursors. Okay, so even as I said, this is another important question, the plants that can actually metabolize the nitrogen oxides. So we are done with the troposphere. Now let's just move a little bit higher up. So because the troposphere is what, up to the 10 kilometers, right? From 10 to 50, that is what is our stratosphere. So this is an important thing that we need to notice. The upper stratosphere, right, that is what will be consisting a considerable amount of ozone. And this ozone, right, will be able to protect us from the harmful effects of the UV radiation. The UV radiation, right, when they are just like that allowed to reach the surface of the earth, they can cause skin cancer, melanoma, or they can even cause harmful effects to the plants also. And we'll see, what are the harmful effects of the UV radiation a little later, but the ozone layer will be able to act as a protective shield, and it will protect us as well as the other organisms on the surface of the earth from the harmful effects of the UV radiation. So if you look at how the ozone is getting produced, it is produced because of the UV radiation acting on the dioxin. So you can see when UV radiation is acting on the dioxin, right, they will be able to give us free oxygens, and the free oxygen will combine with oxygen molecules, thereby giving us what? Ozone. So this is how ozone is getting formed. And the ozone itself is thermodynamically unstable. You can see this is a reversible reaction, right? This is a reversible reaction. So it will again dissociate to give back oxygen molecule and free oxygen. So there will be a dynamic equilibrium, like we study in our chemical equilibrium, right? There is a dynamic equilibrium between the formation and decomposition of the ozone. And this is naturally balanced. And that will maintain, like every equilibrium, right? It will maintain some appropriate levels of ozone, which is required for forming the protective layer. But in recent years, what we are observing is there is something which is very unwanted that is happening. The protective ozone layer, right, is getting damaged because of the presence of certain chemicals, particularly these chlorofluorocarbon compounds. We can also call them as what? Freons. So these are basically compounds of chlorine and fluorine, with carbon. So like we can talk about CF2, Cl2, all these are what chlorofluorocarbon compounds. Now these compounds are the reason for the depletion of the ozone layer. We'll see how these compounds will be able to cause the depletion of ozone layer. First we'll try to understand what are these compounds, where are these coming from. See, these are generally non-reactive, non-flammable and non-toxic organic molecules. That is the reason why particularly they are used in various applications like cleaning of computer parts, the production of plastic foam, even refrigerators, air conditioners. We'll use these chlorofluorocarbon compounds because they are non-reactive, they don't react. Like when you're using it to clean the computer parts, right, they will not react. They are non-flammable and also non-toxic. But the problem is when they are getting into the atmosphere. Once they get into atmosphere, right, they will mix with the other components of the atmosphere and they will slowly go to the stratosphere. When they go to stratosphere, right, the action of UV radiation will basically decompose the chlorofluorocarbons. You can see here CF2, Cl2 is getting decomposed and thereby we will get what? Chlorine radical. This chlorine radical, right, is the most dangerous thing. So it will be able to react with the stratosphere ozone and form chlorine monoxide radical. So you can see here, this is what this particular step, right, is what the consumption of ozone is getting consumed. Okay, so previously the natural balance is we have that equilibrium reaction, right? So the appropriate levels of ozone are maintained by this equilibrium, but now it's like what? By this reaction, this is not a natural phenomena because of the entry of the chlorofluorocarbons into the stratosphere. This reaction is happening, so it will consume the ozone, and even the reaction of chlorine monoxide, right, with the free oxygen, we will be able to get back the chlorine radical because the chlorine radical is required to further consume ozone. So you can see here these two, right, what are these two? The second and third, right? From second reaction, chlorine radical is reacting with ozone to produce chlorine monoxide radical. So ozone is consumed, but chlorine radicals are also lost, right? How do you get the chlorine radicals back? The chlorine monoxide radical will react with free oxygen to give us back the chlorine radical. The chlorine radical again start the reaction 2. So reaction 2 and 3 will happen. So this is a chain reaction. And this is resulting in what? Consumption of the ozone. The chain reaction is resulting in the consumption of the ozone. So essentially, right, what is happening? The chlorine radicals are continuously regenerated. And this is the cause of the breakdown of the ozone. So what is the cause of the breakdown of the ozone? The chlorine radicals. But how they are coming? These chlorofluorocarbons, right? They are the transporting agents. They are the ones which are responsible for bringing the chlorine radicals into the upper stratosphere and thereby damaging the ozone layer. Now there is one more very interesting case study, the ozone hole in the Antarctica. So even there are observations about the same kind of ozone depletion happening in the other side also. So in 1980, right, scientists they have observed that there is a depletion of ozone layer, which we generally call as ozone hole, over the South Pole, Antarctica. And this is happening because of some very peculiar conditions that happen only in the polar region. So we'll talk about what is this peculiar region. First we'll try to understand what are all the things that will happen in the stratosphere near the South Pole. When you have the summer season, right, so let's just we can even mark them as steps. So we're talking about the summer. In summer, the nitrogen dioxide and methane, they will react with chlorine monoxide. Remember the chlorine monoxide radical, right, that is formed. They will react with the chlorine monoxide and chlorine atoms, means radicals. And you can see here chlorine monoxide, when it is reacting with NO2, right, it is forming what? ClO, and when chlorine radical is reacting with methane, it is forming what? HCl. So these compounds, right, we call them as chlorine sinks because these are not that much reactive. So in a way, from the radical stage, we are moving to what? Less reactive chlorine form. So the reactions 4 and 5 that you are seeing here, right, are basically forming chlorine sinks, and once these are formed, that will prevent the further depletion of the ozone, because we are not going to have a chlorine radical, we are not going to have chlorine monoxide radical. These two are the reactions that will happen in summer, which can reduce the chlorine active form. We can say, what is it? Chlorine active form. They are reducing the chlorine active form. But when the winter comes, right, there will be something called as the polar stratospheric clouds that will be formed in the Antarctica. In the upper layers of the atmosphere, we will have the formation of the clouds. Now, if these clouds are not formed, this unreactive chlorine form, right, it will not be able to cause the depletion of the ozone again. But because of this Antarctic cloud formation, right, or we call it as what? Polar stratospheric clouds. I will show you, So this is how, this is just a visualization of how we will have the clouds in the upper layers of the stratosphere. They will provide the surface area on which this chlorine nitrate that is formed, ClON2, right, the chlorine nitrate that is formed in reaction 4 will get hydrolyzed to form hypochlorous acid. You see here 6, and the chlorine nitrate will also react with the HCl to form what? Molecular chlorine. So what is happening is we are getting from the non-reactive form HCl and chlorine nitrate. They are what? Non-reactive in the sense they are non-reactive from the point of view of damaging the ozone layer. When the winter is coming, because of the surface area provided by the stratospheric clouds, right, the chloronitrate and the hydrochloric acid, they are getting converted into which form? Hypochlorous acid and chlorine molecules. So these two, right, just make a note of it. The HOCl that is formed and Cl2, these are the active forms. Now when the sunlight returns in spring, right, what we will see is that these hypochlorous acid and chlorine molecule, they dissociate to give us the chlorine radicals. And these chlorine radicals, right, they will again initiate the chain reaction for the ozone depletion. We have seen that. So if in winter these stratospheric clouds are not there, right, there are less reactive forms of chlorine, which is chloronitrate, ClONO2 and HCl. They would have been there. That would have reduced the ozone depletion. But because of the stratospheric clouds, they are getting converted into what? HOCl, hypochlorous acid, and Cl2, which again by the action of sunlight are giving us the radicals. So if you look at what are the harmful effects of the ozone layer depletion, obviously the UV will be able to, UV rays will reach the surface of the earth. So it can cause, on human beings, it can cause aging of the skin, cataract, sunburns, skin cancer, even many phytoplankton, right, they can be getting killed. They can cause damage to the fish. And even plant proteins, right, they can get affected by the UV radiation, and that can lead to a lot of harmful mutations. See, the point is not all effects of the UV rays might have already been studied. So we can still have some harmful effects which are not foreseen. And the other important thing is, this can be asked sometimes as a question. It will increase the evaporation of surface water through the stomata of the leaves. So when you turn the leaf backside, right, you will see these, structures, stomata. Through that we will have the evaporation of water. So the UV radiation, right, will increase the evaporation of water through the stromato, and that will be reducing the soil moisture content. Even the UV rays, right, they can cause damage to the paints and make them to fade away faster. Okay, so these are all the harmful effects of the UV rays. As I said, we might not be fully aware of what are all the harmful effects that UV rays can cause to us or to the other living organisms. Okay, so that's the reason why the protective ozone layer is very much required. And you might have seen in the news also that because of the lockdown across the world, I mean, this is what we can say, one positive effect of these lockdowns that have happened due to the COVID pandemic. The emissions in all forms have reduced across the world, and they have seen a considerable improvement in the ozone layer concentration. Okay, so this is about the stratospheric pollutants, and in the next part, right, third part, we'll start with the water and soil pollution. Okay, we'll see in the next video.